When We Were Young, 2024, all album plays, 57 records being played by some of our favorite bands in the scene, the best bands who've ever done it, and the Emo Social Club. We're reviewing them. We're telling them are they great or they're not so great.
We're saying it like we mean it.
She waited so long for that. On this episode, we are talking about the starting lines, Say It Like You Mean It. And Lizzie, before we get into our thoughts and our opinions on the starting line and Say It Like You Mean It, please tell us more about them.
This is the Starting Line's debut album that came out on July 16th, 2002 on Drive-Thru Records. So the way that they formed was that their drummer and guitarist were literally looking on AOL through all of the members on there and emailing people to find a singer. This was for their band prior to the Starting Line. They found Kenny Vasoli. They eventually started the Starting Line afterwards and had to change their name from Sunday Drive because of legal issues, because other acts had that name already in a different state. So that's how the Starting Line came to be. This album was produced by Mark Tribino, who also produced Jimmy Eat World's Clarity. Finch's Nate Barclow also recorded Screams for Cheek to Cheek.
Yes.
The singles off of here are The Best of Me and Leaving. Right after this, they toured with Brand New and Finch on their spring run. This didn't chart from what I could find, but Kerrang did name this album as number 27 on their 51 greatest pop punk albums list. We come back to this really random thing of Cleveland.com ranking The Best of Me at number 33 out of 100 of best pop punk songs. Somebody who runs this website or lives in Ohio, explain. I don't understand.
What is going on in Ohio? That's not a question anybody can answer.
You know, that's between you and Ohioans.
Yeah,
you can
that's
keep
between
that
you
over
and
there.
your God. Before we get into our opinions on this record, make sure you are subscribed. We are almost done. We are reviewing all of the records being played at When We Were Young this year. So if you are subscribed, you will know when the next one hits, when the last one comes, you'll be able to go, hey, I saw all of them. They're in a playlist down below. If you haven't yet, you can catch up now. You have all the time now when this is released to catch up before the festival so that you know whether you should check out these albums, whether you should listen to them ahead of time. Maybe you'll miss out on some gold you didn't even know it existed.
You don't want to end up binge watching everything the night before because then you're going to have system overload. Do it at a normal leisurely pace, take it all in, and then figure it out. Here are my thoughts on the Starting Line, Say It Like You Mean It. This is a great album. I love the Starting Line.
Yeah.
This came out in the early 2000s. I came to know the Starting Line much later in life because of that. But this album is such a standout, and what your main character energy needs if you ever wanted to experience nostalgia of the early 2000s. Because I was too little to understand it, so now I'm living it now through this album. This is kind of crafted as what I would really describe as the actual sound of pop punk in the early 2000s. I would put the Starting Line, well, pop punk and emo, I would put the Starting Line and most likely Jimmy Eat World into that lineup.
Because you would say teen movie.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way you listen to this and you don't go, this is a teen movie soundtrack.
Teen movie coming of age soundtrack.
Yeah. And I think that's why. That's why it's like such a pop punk sound, is because it sounds just like that high school or like college or my parents are out of town and I'm partying at home type music.
Yeah.
Broke a vase.
Yeah. And it's all the cops are getting called. We got to scatter. Yeah. That's what happened during those times, right? I don't know. No, okay.
It didn't.
I can imagine it does. I don't know.
Didn't to me.
I think the Starting Line is great. I think they need to tour in Chicago more, simply so I can see them, because I have not seen them nearly as much as I would have liked to. And I found them because I was interning at a podcast network, and the Starting Line is a band that I feel is very underrated in the mainstream. I don't think a lot of people know much more about them, if at all, other than The Best of Me, which is kind of a crime.
Here are my thoughts on the Starting Line, Say It Like You Mean It. I really like this record.
Oh, thank God.
Right? What if I came in and said no? I have known the Starting Line for a long time. Like, I'm pretty sure Best of Me came on like MTV or something when I was in high school, because it came out my sophomore year of high school. So of course, like, I'm in this genre. I'm looking for bands in this genre. And Best of Me obviously like was a pretty big hit for like the scene and like when the stuff was coming up. I've heard this record way back in the day and even saw the first time the Starting Line got back together, maybe like the 10-year
Okay.
to go, and I saw them play this live. Kenny made a joke about how he's too old now to sing all these songs he wrote when he was like 15. I mean, this record is like that perfect nostalgic early 2000s teen movie style of music, style of pop punk. You know, we've reviewed a couple of other records from like that era, like Newfound Glory and All American Rejects. And there was something about this that felt like it should be more in the vein of those two, but it just didn't have all of the things I didn't care for from those records. I don't know. I think it's better songwriting. I think it's a better vocalist in Kenny Vasoli. I think it's the fact that he is a bassist, so he's putting more rhythm into what he's creating. I've known about the Starting Line for so long that like I know that Kenny Vasoli did a project called Person L later because one of his favorite bands is Radiohead. So I think that Kenny just brought in a very different vibe and like interest to creating pop punk music in the early 2000s that was much better songwriting, much better vocal melodies, a much better like tone to his voice. And like this sounds like those records that everybody is mad that we don't like, that we weren't into. I heard this and I'm like, this is what I want. Why were Newfound Glory and All American Rejects not more like this? The Starting Line should have been your starting point to make the good pop punk of the early 2000s. All I'm saying.
If they were more mainstream known and kind of critically acclaimed, I think we could have had a lot of different types of pop.
They should have been. If they didn't do Island, they might have been. Island is a great record. Nobody wanted them to do Island. They did Island way too early. No one wanted them to do Island. Kenny is clearly a kind of guy who's like, I want to smoke pot, write music, hang out, have a good time, which is great. And I respect and I love that for Kenny. But that's the reason why they're maybe not the biggest band compared to Newfound Glory, compared to All American Rejects even. They didn't write like a big, huge, dumb pop record at the time that they probably should have. They wrote something that is very, very good. It sounds excellent. It has great vibes to it. It is perfect for that era. But they didn't want to write a big, dumb pop record. Power to them, but there's a reason why they're not the biggest shit that they could have been. That's not to say that they didn't write great songs.
Oh, yeah.
And I really liked this record. This is definitely a record that I'm going to throw on again. And yeah, all that. So I just feel like, you know, maybe it's nice that they are a little bit more underground because then we get to just like be like, no, this band really is very good. And I know you haven't heard them. So you get more times and more opportunities to go, hey, have you heard like this old Starting Line record? And people go, oh, damn.
It's literally like, I have something for you.
Slide it across the table, brother. So, Lizzie, you know this record like the back of your hand.
I
What
do.
are your favorite tracks from Starting Line? Say Like You Mean It.
Start off first and foremost, the strongest, Up and Go.
Pretty good.
Fantastic opener.
It's pretty good.
It's catchy, bouncy, energetic. It sets the tone for the entire album.
Yep.
It gets you ready to be in this make-believe movie you want. Just imagine listening to this album while you're waking up in the morning, you're getting ready, and then you're heading out the door to go to work, school, whatever you're doing. It just sets such a good tone and vibe.
Leaving is severely underrated.
Oh, yeah.
Leaving is a heavily, severely underrated pop punk, early 2000s, emo, all of that. It's heavily underrated. And I've thought that ever since I first heard the song. This song is a banger. Why are people not listening to this more often? Best of Me is a great song. Love Best of Me. I think that is also severely underrated for as popular as it is.
Right.
Obviously, that song is a massive hit for the Starting Line, and it's a massive hit in pop punk and emo. But the farther away we get from 2002, the longer, you know, these bands are doing this shit. Like, obviously, that is a song that is going to be more for older emos or bands or people who really, really like the Starting Line and all that. And I think that Leaving gets swept under the rug too much, and I don't think it should. I think that song is so good. The chorus is amazing. The vocals on it are so good. We've let Leaving down. There's a band name that you can use. Let Leaving Down is a great band name for you. Take it. You serious now.
Another one that I really liked is Almost There, Going Nowhere. You hear the callback to the album title, Say It Like You Mean It, right at the top of the song. So it kind of brings it all together. This is pop punk tinged emo. And this is what exactly I expect from my early 2000s pop punk emo. They blend this sound so exceptionally well in this song that if somebody literally asked me for a time capsule of anything from like 2000s to 2005 for this genre of music, I would put Jimmy Eat World and then this song into here.
Shoo. Sheesh.
Sheesh.
Shoo.
Again, it's such a cinematic type of record because looking back at it now, they're singing about such silly, simple issues about, damn, I didn't get the girl and I hope she's thinking about it. It's goofy stuff. And we look back on it with such a nostalgia of us wanting to say, damn, I just wish that was my biggest concern over literally anything else. There's arguments all the time about nostalgia. I think this is a good nostalgia piece of art.
It's of a time and place, but that time and place can also be relevant now, and the sound can be relevant now, and it is a very specific time and place that is relevant, I think, to pretty much the American high school experience.
Yeah.
Across the board. Another song I really liked on this was Cheek to Cheek, because the screaming in it, and I really dig early 2000s pop punk that has like that screaming in it. Like obviously Fall Out Boy took that, and like a lot of these bands that were from more of a hardcore punk scene wanted to do poppy stuff that is essentially for women and girls. And, you know, I don't want to scream in front of a bunch of dudes. I want to play guitar and get the girl at the end of the day. And then adding that scream back in is like, no, we're close to our roots. But it being Finch, I'm like, hell yeah. Hell yeah, thank you. Pete Wentz, you could never. Yeah, that's right. I did it. I said it.
No.
But the other thing I liked about this song was the electronic parts in it. Because I know that a lot of people were very upset when I said that All American Rejects and their Casio keyboard ass shit didn't sound good. It sounded very amateur. And I'm like, what's good about what Starting Line did here is that they knew it was going to sound amateur. So they did it very sparingly. They did it only when it would make a lot of sense. And they did it as like one cool song. And it worked for me because the drum beat was interesting. The way that it sounded in context of it just sounded very cool. So I feel like it's just the fact that they did what a lot of these other bands were trying to do and in albums we've reviewed on here. And the Starting Line, bar none, did it the best on this record. I don't know if that's Mark Trombino's producer, like coming up with ideas because he did a lot of that stuff on Jimmy Eat Worlds too. So I don't know. I think it might just be that the Starting Line just had a little bit more of a leg up. And I think that this record does a lot more of those things that I didn't like in other records from the same time period. Way better. Way better.
I think the only other thing that I really enjoyed that stood out to me was the finishing track, This Ride.
Yeah, I was going to say that. That's one of mine too.
It wraps everything up just so well. And again, imagine yourself, you're at the end of some movie, you're at the end of your day, end of some event, and you're just getting ready for your next adventure. It just gets you re-hyped up to re-listen to the album, go do something else that you're really hyped up to do. It's fantastic. I also think when Vasoli says, here's the things I meant, but I never said. Oh, so Tumblr core. Oh, if I saw that.
This is so right on point with emo stuff, man. It's everything here. Like, I don't care how like childish. I don't care how high school it is. It's perfect. Mm-hmm. It's perfect.
I think what separates them too between some of the other pop punk acts we've heard during this time that maybe we're not super jazzed about, the lyricism isn't also sometimes as outwardly towards, I hate my girlfriend.
But it is like, it's more longing and yearning for a woman. The reason that this is better is because it's not nasally. That's the main reason this is better. It's because Kenny can sing and Kenny has a good tone to his voice. Like, that's the thing I've always liked about the Starting Line is that Kenny can clearly sing.
Yeah.
Props to that. Just having a fucking good singing voice as a pop punk band.
Props to being talented.
Yeah, seriously.
Now, Brian, what are some of your spiciest takes here?
This album's too long. And not from a sense of like there's too many songs on it. It's the fact that the tempos are much slower here. There's a lot of songs that are longer just because they're playing at a slower tempo. Yeah. And I know this because I've covered Best of Me a lot. It's like the tempo does not need to be this slow. We could bump that up a little bit. But a lot of the songs have time to breathe. They have time to get to where they're going. You know, they're not like coming right out of a chorus and going right back into a verse. They're not like moving through the songs too quickly. There's letting something exist and playing a little bit and like getting people comfortable with what's happening around them that like we've kind of lost in music. And I'm okay with it in that I like 3.5 minute pop songs and I appreciate a 3.5 minute pop song. So I think that this is refreshing to do it, but is definitely like we could bump those tempos up a little bit. We could pump up the jams a little bit. The only other thing I had is that there's a couple songs that are straight up Blink-182. Just no question about it. It's just Blink-182. I think because Kenny is a bassist and a singer, it brings that Blink-182 side to it. I could also see somebody at Drive-Thru Records just being like, yeah, can you do a Blink-182 thing? We would like a Blink-182.
Like the kids like this Blink-182. I think we had the little sprinkle of that
I think
in
we could
here.
do it. You're a singer and a bassist, and he's like, do-do-do, do-do-do, do-do-do. It's like, yeah, that's Blink-182, dude. You just wrote Blink-182 bass riffs and opened like 2 or 3 songs of them. I don't hate it. Blink-182 was hugely influential. Enema of the State came out 3 years before this. Like, there's no question that like Blink was probably an influence in the same way that Jimmy Eat World was and all that. So I think there's a lot here that probably was taking from the people who had done it before them. They were probably taking a lot from that. I don't have shade to that because I think that they still did something very interesting, and I still think the songwriting has to be there in order to do that. It's really hard to ignore how much this sounds like a Blink-182 song when the bass comes in right at the top. It's like, that's just Blink-182 at a slower tempo.
I'm a synth girly. I did not like the synth to open Cheek to Cheek.
Ooh.
I wanted to like it so bad. It just is not congruent to the rest of the album. Once we get more into the song, though, I have really no qualms about it.
Yeah.
But that synth, I don't know.
I think it's just because All American Rejects made me so angry with theirs. And like they did it so much better on Move Along, that being from the same era and hearing it here, I was like, oh, that's what you were trying to do and didn't do correctly.
Yeah.
And here's what Starting Line did and did it so much better than you. So I'm very much giving Starting Line credit for something that I didn't like about another band that is completely unrelated. But in my brain, I'm like, that's why it's good, because it's better than that.
So literally, this one's better than the other one, so I'm going to take this one.
Yep.
Okay.
1000%.
Okay.
And I like it. Not that it's better. I like it. I didn't like that. I like this. Those are our thoughts. Those are our opinions. Those are our takes on the Starting Line. But we have one more take to give you. Should you see the Starting Line Say It Like You Mean It at When We Were Young Fest 2024?
Yeah. Because here's the thing, too. They don't tour a lot. So this is going to be one of the times you can go and see them. Don't be a boo-boo the fool. Go and check them out. I saw them at the first When We Were Young Fest, and I was trying to find my way towards the front. I made it halfway. It was great.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to recommend it because I've seen this record played in full for the 10-year whatever anniversary it was. And although that seemed like the first time that Kenny had really come back to do it and like kind of revisiting the Starting Line after a long time away from it. They've been on tour for a while now. I think the show's going to be really good. I think the set's going to be really fun. I think the band is still very talented. I think Kenny is a very good singer. I think that you're going to hear a very early 2000s nostalgic experience that maybe you didn't know you needed. And you're going to think that you're in a teen movie. And I think that that's worth it. You're not going to get that with a lot of other bands that are at this fest, except for Newfound Glory and All American Rejects. So I guess those two. But beyond that, like, you need the experience that you're going to get listening to this record. I really liked it, and I think that you will like it, and I think that you should see it.
And again, you can always tell your friends, well, I know this band. How come you didn't know this band?
Those are our thoughts. All the places will be. Where will you be? Hopefully it's in the comments down below, leaving us your thoughts and opinions on this record and our thoughts and opinions on this record. Thoughts and opinions are flying. They are tossed about.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. Say it like you mean it when you're down there. There's also a playlist with all of our album reviews. We are almost done. Make sure you're subscribing now to catch the last episodes, the last reviews we got to do before When We Were Young Fest 2024, and until the festival, and until the Starting Line, and until Say It Like You Mean It, we will see you there.